The first thing you should know is that betrayal doesn't come in loud explosions, it slips in quietly, like a whisper you almost miss. The second thing? Love, as I learned the hard way, is never as simple as it looks in the movies. I didn't cry when Ethan told me he was leaving. No storming out, no shouting match, no smashing plates like in those dramatic rom-coms. I just stood there, holding the coffee I'd made for him, extra cream. Sugarsand watched his lips move, as if he were narrating someone else's story. "I didn't plan for this, Nate," he said, eyes flicking everywhere but mine. "It just happened. Just happened, right? That it had a name. Oliver. My older brother. The golden boy of the family. The one who could light up a room without even trying. What do you even say when your best friend at work, the man you've shared midnight deadlines and stolen laughs with, chooses your own blood over you?" I smiled. "Can you believe that?" A goddamn smile. "Congratulations," I said, like he'd just won Employee of the Month. My voice didn't even crack. If there were awards for emotional restraint, I'd have nailed the gold. But inside was a whole different war. Work didn't stop for heartbreak, and thank God for that. If I had a choice between drowning in whiskey and spreadsheets, I'd take spreadsheets any day. At least numbers don't lie. People do. So there I was, 3 weeks post-betrayal, sitting in an over-air-conditioned office in downtown Manhattan, pretending to give a damn about quarterly projections while my brain replayed every memory of Ethan like some sick highlight reel. The way he laughed at my dumb jokes. The way his hand brushed mine that night we stayed late and split cold pizza over a glowing Excel sheet. The way he said, "You're the only person who gets me, Nate." Yeah. Guess I didn't get him enough. "You alive in there?" A voice pulled me back to reality. I looked up and there he was. Adrian Cole, the firm's newest hire, standing over my desk with a smile that didn't belong in this gray-walled hell. Blonde hair that caught the sunlight just right, eyes like melted caramel, and a presence that screamed confidence without arrogance. The kind of guy who looks like he belongs on a Calvin Klein billboard but still remembers your coffee order. "Barely," I muttered, because sarcasm is cheaper than therapy. He chuckled, low and easy. "Figures. You've been staring at that screen for 20 minutes. I timed you." "Creepy much?" I shot back, but my lips twitched. "Observant," he corrected, sliding a file onto my desk. "Also, you owe me lunch. Lost a bet. Remember?" Did I remember? Hell no. My brain was too busy wondering why his sleeves were rolled up like that, showing forearms that could probably ruin lives. But whatever. Lunch sounded better than marinating in misery. Here's the thing about Adrian, he didn't push. He didn't ask why I suddenly hated small talk or why my smiles looked like they were forged in hell. He just showed up at my desk, at the coffee machine, in the elevator, and somehow made the air feel lighter. And damn it, I noticed. The way he listened, like every word I said was worth something. The way his laugh filled spaces I didn't even realize were empty. The way his eyes lingered a second too long when I loosened my tie at the end of the day. Should have scared me. Maybe it did. Because the last time I let someone in, I ended up as the punchline in my own family drama. But then came that night. We were the last two in the office, shocker, I know. Rain hammered against the windows. The city outside blurred in streaks of neon. Adrian leaned against my desk, his shirt clinging just enough to hint at the body underneath. "You ever get tired of pretending everything's fine?" he asked softly, like he already knew the answer. I didn't look at him. Couldn't. "What makes you think I'm pretending?" He didn't laugh, didn't deflect, just stepped closer. So close I could smell his cologne, clean, warm, like cedar and something sweeter. "Because I know what it looks like," he said, "carrying something alone." Something inside me cracked then, not loud, not obvious, just enough to let a little truth slip through. I turned to him, ready to throw up some clever retort, but the words died on my tongue because Jesus Christ, his eyes. They weren't pitying. They weren't prying. They were just there. And before I could talk myself out of it, before I could think of all the reasons why this was a bad idea, his hand was on mine. Warm, steady. A question without words. And God help me, I didn't pull away. That was the first night I let someone see the cracks. The first night I realized maybe, Just maybe I wasn't as unbreakable as I thought. But here's the kicker. The universe wasn't done screwing with me. Because a week later, Oliver and Ethan decided to throw an engagement party, and guess who got an invite with a little smiley face drawn next to his name? Yeah. This was going to get messy. I stared at the email like it had personally crawled out of hell to ruin my week. Subject line: engagement party, Oliver and Ethan. Sent from my brother's account because of course it was. The man never missed a chance to make things official. Birthdays, graduations, even family game nights had calendar invites. My stomach twisted as I read the details. Saturday evening, uptown loft, dress code semi-formal, drinks and dinner provided. Oh, and the kicker? Can't wait to celebrate with the people we love most. People we love most. My hand clenched around the mouse until the cheap plastic creaked. They had the audacity to call me family goals when my insides were an earthquake. You okay? Adrian's voice sliced through the static in my head. He was leaning against my cubicle wall, one brow raised, coffee in hand like the bastard had a built-in radar for my emotional meltdowns. Peachy, I said, minimizing the email like it was porn I'd been caught watching. He smirked because Adrian always smirked when I lied. That bad, huh? Define that. Your jaw's doing that clenchy thing again, he said, circling his finger near his own face. Pretty sure dentists love guys like you. Thanks for the diagnosis, Dr. Cole. He shrugged, sauntered closer, and placed the coffee on my desk. A peace offering, or a trap? Hard to tell with him. Double shot, 2 sugars, he said. Because I like living dangerously. You've been watching me? I muttered, reaching for the cup. Observing, he corrected, flashing that grin, the one that should come with a warning label. Creepy much? Persistent? He shot back, eyes locking on mine like he was daring me to look away first. God help me, I didn't. The rest of the week blurred by in a haze of deadlines and avoidance strategies. I threw myself into work like a man running from a burning building, except the fire wasn't behind me, it was inside me. Every time my phone buzzed with another, "Can't wait to see you," from Oliver, I wanted to smash it against the nearest wall. And Ethan? Radio silence. Not a text. Not a call. Like I'd vanished off the face of the earth. Maybe that was for the best. But life, as usual, had other plans. Friday evening, as I was packing up, Adrian appeared at my desk again. This time, no smirk. Just a look that said he wasn't leaving until I cracked. You've been weird all week, he said. I'm always weird. True, he allowed. But this is a different flavor. Spill. I've got nothing, I said, slinging my bag over my shoulder. Bullshit, he said, stepping in front of me before I could escape. Is this about that email? I froze. You read my screen? You left it open, he said with a shrug that wasn't even apologetic. Engagement party, right? Sounds intense. Understatement of the year, I muttered. He tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. You gonna tell me why it feels like you'd rather walk barefoot over broken glass than go to that party? No, okay, he said easily, but then he added, so I'll just come with you. What? You heard me, he said, that grin creeping back like sunlight after a storm. I'll be your +1, moral support, buffer against awkward family drama. First of all, it's not a date, I said, because holy hell, the thought did things to me I was not prepared for. Didn't say it was, he replied, his tone light but his eyes holding mine with something heavier. But I'm serious, Nate. You don't have to do this alone. My throat went tight. The last time someone said that to me, they didn't mean it. But Adrian, he said it like a promise. Like he meant every damn syllable. And against my better judgment, I heard myself say, fine, but don't say I didn't warn you. Saturday night came faster than I wanted. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my tie for the 10th time, wondering if there was a way to fake a sudden illness without sounding like a soap opera character. My reflection stared back, unimpressed. You look like a man heading to his execution, Adrian said from behind me. I turned and there he was. Dark navy suit, crisp white shirt, no tie because of course he'd pull off effortless better than anyone I knew. My breath caught in my throat for a second longer than I wanted to admit. "You clean up nice," I said, aiming for casual and landing somewhere near choked admiration. He grinned. "You're not so bad yourself. Ready?" "Nope. Too bad." He grabbed my keys off the counter like he owned the place. "Let's go, dead man walking." The engagement party was exactly what I'd expected: lavish, loud, and suffocating. Oliver's loft looked like something out of an architecture magazine, all glass walls and sleek furniture. People milled about in designer clothes, champagne flutes in hand, laughing like life had never punched them in the gut. And there, in the center of it all, were Oliver and Ethan. They looked perfect. Of course they did. Oliver with his movie star smile and Ethan with that easy charm that used to feel like mine. Their hands intertwined like they'd been carved that way. My stomach turned. "You okay?" Adrian murmured, so close his breath brushed my ear. I nodded because the alternative was throwing up in a champagne bucket. "Come on," he said, his hand pressing lightly against my back as he guided me through the crowd. "Let's get a drink before you pass out." 3 glasses of whiskey later, I was doing great. Or at least I was pretending to. Adrian never left my side, his presence a steady hum against the chaos. He laughed at my dry comments, deflected nosy relatives like a pro, and when my mother swooped in with a pointed, "So who's your handsome friend?" he didn't even flinch. "Adrian," he said smoothly, shaking her hand like he'd been born for this. "Nate's told me all about you," which was a lie. I told him nothing. But the way he said it, believable as hell. By the time Oliver and Ethan made their way over, I was almost relaxed. Almost. "Nate," Oliver said, pulling me into a hug that felt like an ambush. "You made it. Wouldn't miss it." I lied, my voice so flat it could have doubled as a landing strip. Ethan hovered just behind him, eyes flicking to mine like he was searching for something. Guilt? Regret? I didn't care. Or at least I told myself I didn't. "And who's this?" Oliver asked, turning to Adrian. "Adrian Cole," he said, offering his hand. "Colleague. Friend." The pause before that last word was microscopic, but I felt it like a tremor under my skin. "Nice to meet you," Oliver said warmly, completely oblivious to the silent earthquake happening 2 feet away. "Ethan, though?" Ethan noticed. His jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing just slightly as they flicked between me and Adrian. Good. Let him wonder. The night dragged on in a blur of fake smiles and polite conversation. I kept my whiskey topped off and my distance from Ethan, which worked fine until it didn't. I'd slipped out onto the balcony for some air. The city spread out below like a glittering lie when the door clicked open behind me. "Nate," Ethan said, his voice low, almost cautious. I didn't turn. "Shouldn't you be inside, basking in the glow of true love?" He winced. I could hear it in the silence that followed. "I didn't want it to happen like this." "What, the part where you ditched me for my brother? Or the part where you invited me to celebrate it?" "Nate, save it," I snapped, finally turning to face him. "You made your choice. Own it. Don't come out here acting like you tripped and fell into his bed." His face twisted, something like pain flickering there. "It wasn't like that." The door opened again, and Adrian stepped out, his eyes cutting between us like he'd walked into a minefield. "Everything good out here?" he asked, his tone calm but his jaw tight. "Perfect," I said, brushing past them both before Ethan could finish whatever excuse he was about to throw at me. I didn't stop walking until I was outside, the cold night air slapping me in the face like a wake-up call. I heard footsteps behind McQuicker, heavier than the rest. "Nate, wait," Adrian said, catching up and grabbing my arm. "Don't," I said, my voice cracking on the edge of something I couldn't name. He didn't let go. "Talk to me." "There's nothing to say," I bit out. "I'm fine." "No, you're not," he said, stepping closer, his eyes burning into mine. "You've been carrying this crap alone for weeks, and I'm not gonna let you do it anymore." My breath hitched. He was too close. Too much. And for a second, I wanted to shove him away just to keep from falling apart. But then his hand slid up, cupping the back of my neck with a gentleness that undid me. "Let me in, Nate," he whispered. And just like that, the dam broke. I didn't think, didn't plan. I just closed the distance, my mouth crashing into his like a storm tearing through calm water. And when he kissed me back deep, desperate, like he'd been waiting for this as much as I hottie realized something terrifying and beautiful. I wasn't broken. Not completely. Not yet. And maybe, just maybe, he was the one who could put me back together. The kiss was reckless, raw like a live wire pressed against my skin. For one perfect second, the noise of the city, the hum of the party, even the ghosts of what I'd lost vanished. It was just Adrian and me, breathing the same uneven air. And then reality slammed back in. I pulled away, stumbling like the ground had shifted. "Two shouldn't have, stop," Adrian said, his voice low but steady. His hand stayed at the back of my neck, warm and grounding. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Act like this didn't mean something," he said, eyes searching mine like they were mapping out the fault lines I'd spent years hiding. I swallowed hard, my pulse pounding in my ears. "Adrian, this is complicated." "Complicated." His lips curved, but there was no humor in it. "Try living your life pretending you don't want something because you're scared it'll blow up in your face. That's complicated." I stared at him, my heart doing somersaults. The worst part? He was right. But before I could respond, the sound of the balcony door opening sliced through the moment. Voices laughing, oblivious spilled out. Adrian stepped back, his jaw tight, and I followed suit like two teenagers caught doing something forbidden. "Guess we should go," I muttered, my voice rough. "Yeah," he said, his gaze holding mine for a beat longer than necessary. "But this isn't over, Nate." The ride home was a blur. Adrian drove because my hands were shaking too much to trust a steering wheel. We didn't talk. The silence was thick, humming with things neither of us knew how to say. When he pulled up outside my building, I reached for the door handle like it was a lifeline. "Nate!" His voice stopped me cold. I turned, heart lodged in my throat. He leaned across the console, his face so close I could see the flecks of gold in his eyes. "I'm not sorry about what happened," he said quietly. "And you shouldn't be either." Before I could respond, he sat back, giving me space I didn't know if I wanted. "Good night," he said, like a promise and a challenge all in one. I got out without another word, because if I stayed, I might have done something that would change everything, and I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt his mouth on mine, tasted the whiskey and rain on his lips. Every cell in my body screamed for something I'd spent years denying. To be wanted. To be chosen. And then the fear crept in. What the hell was I doing? Adrian wasn't just some guy. He was my colleague, my friend, the one person who'd seen me unravel and hadn't run. If this went south, I'd lose more than a kiss. I'd lose him. But the truth was a cruel bastard. I was already lost. Monday hit like a freight train. I walked into the office expecting awkwardness, maybe even avoidance. Instead, Adrian greeted me with his usual grin, cool, easy, like the kiss hadn't flipped my entire world upside down. "Morning," he said, sliding a coffee across my desk. "You don't have to keep doing that," I muttered, taking the cup anyway because caffeine and Adrian were two things I couldn't refuse. "Doing what?" "Acting like." I trailed off, lowering my voice. "Like nothing happened." He tilted his head, eyes glinting. "Who said nothing happened?" Heat crawled up my neck. "Adrian, relax," he said, leaning in just enough for only me to hear. "I'm not going to announce it over the PA system, but I'm not pretending either." And just like that, he walked away, leaving me staring after him like an idiot while my heart tried to punch its way out of my chest. For the next few days, we danced around this thing between us. The stolen glances, the brush of his hand when he passed me a file, the way his laughter lingered in my head long after he'd left the room. It was torture. Sweet, exquisite torture. And then came Thursday. I was in the copy room, cursing at the machine for eating my report, when Adrian appeared in the doorway like some smug angel of mercy. "Need a hand?" he asked, his voice dripping with faux innocence. "Unless you can magically fix paper jams, no?" I grumbled. "Lucky for you, magic is one of my many talents," he said, stepping behind me. Too close. Way too close. His arm brushed mine as he reached for the machine, his scent wrapping around me like smoke. My breath hitched, and I hated how obvious it was. "Relax," he murmured, his lips near my ear now. "You're wound so tight. I'm surprised you haven't snapped." "I'm fine," I said, but it came out strangled. "No," he said softly, turning me to face him. His hand rested lightly on my hip, not pushing, just there a question. "You're not." My resolve crumbled like wet paper. "Adrian, tell me to stop," he said, his eyes locking on mine. "And I will." God help me, I couldn't. So I didn't. I kissed him like I'd been starving, and he was the first meal in months. And when he kissed me back, deep and sure, I knew I was past the point of no return. The next few weeks were a blur of stolen moments. Late nights at the office that turned into hours tangled in each other's arms. Quiet mornings where his head rested on my chest and the world felt almost bearable. I'd forgotten what happiness felt like, and it terrified me, because every time I looked at him, I saw something I didn't think I deserved. A future. But life has a way of testing you right when you start to believe you're safe. It happened on a Tuesday. I was in the conference room, half listening to a presentation, when my phone buzzed with a text from Oliver. "Need to talk. Urgent." Great. Because nothing good ever comes from those 3 words. I met him at a cafe after work, my stomach knotting tighter with every step. He was already there, looking like a GQ cover in a tailored coat, his expression unreadable. "Nate," he said, standing to hug me. I let him, mostly because causing a scene in a Starbucks felt a little too dramatic. "What's so urgent?" I asked, sliding into the seat across from him. He hesitated, which was never a good sign. "It's about Ethan." My pulse spiked. "What about him?" "He's worried," Oliver said slowly. "About you." I laughed, sharp and humorless. "Worried? That's rich." "He thinks you're—" Oliver stopped, choosing his words like landmines. "He thinks you're involved with someone at work." The bottom dropped out of my stomach. "What?" I said, even though I'd heard him perfectly. "Is it true?" Oliver asked, his eyes searching mine. "Because if it is—" "Stop." I cut in, my voice like ice. "You don't get to sit here and play protective big brother after what you pulled." "Nate." "No," I snapped, shoving back from the table. "Whatever you think you know, stay out of it. This is my life. My business. Not yours. Not his." I left before he could say another word, my heart pounding like a war drum. Because here's the thing. Secrets have a way of clawing their way into the light. And mine? It was about to burn everything down. When I walked into my apartment that night, Adrian was there, leaning against the counter like he belonged. Which, in some twisted way, he did now. "You okay?" he asked, his brow furrowing when he saw my face. "No," I admitted, and the word felt like ripping off a bandage. "Oliver knows, or thinks he knows." Adrian's jaw tightened. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing," I said. "But he's not stupid. And if Ethan's involved, we'll handle it," Adrian said, cutting me off with a certainty I didn't feel. "How?" I demanded. "This isn't just office gossip, Adrian. This is my family, my career, my us." He finished for me, stepping closer, his hands framing my face. "We'll handle us, whatever it takes." And damn it, I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that real love was strong enough to survive the wreckage. But as I looked into his eyes, I couldn't shake the fear gnawing at my chest. What if wanting him cost me everything? I didn't sleep that night. My body was exhausted, but my mind wouldn't shut up. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Oliver's face, heard his voice, and then where I heard Ethan's. The past clawed its way up like smoke under a door, choking me with memories I didn't want anymore. By 3 a.m., I was sitting on the floor of my apartment, back against the couch, staring at nothing while Adrian slept in my bed. The rise and fall of his breathing was the only thing keeping me tethered to this reality. If I let myself spiral too far, I'd lose everything I'd fought so hard to hold together, and that terrified me more than anything. At some point, Adrian woke up. I didn't hear him at first, but I felt him. The warmth of his presence behind me, the soft brush of his hand against my shoulder. "You're doing that thing again," he murmured, voice thick with sleep. "What thing?" "The disappearing act," he said gently, sliding down to sit next to me. "Like you think if you stare hard enough at the floor, it'll swallow you whole." I huffed out a laugh, bitter and thin. "Might not be the worst option." "Stop," he said firmly, his fingers curling under my chin, forcing me to look at him. "Talk to me. I don't even know where to start." "Try the truth," he said, his thumb brushing against my jaw in a way that both calmed and unstrung me. "It's a good place." I met his eyes, those steady, unwavering eyes, and something cracked open in me. "I'm scared, Adrian." "I know," he said softly. "So am I." "No," I said, shaking my head. "You don't get it. This isn't just about us hooking up," or my voice broke, and I swallowed hard. "This is my family. My brother. The guy who used to be everything. And now, if they find out about you, about us, they will," Adrian said simply. "Secrets don't stay secrets. Not the ones that matter." The weight of his words settled heavy on my chest. But there was something else there too, something fierce and bright. Because he wasn't saying it like a threat. He was saying it like a promise. That when the storm came, he'd still be here. Before I could answer, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. He ignored it. So did I. For one fragile, perfect moment, we just sat there. His hand wrapped around mine like an anchor in a sea that wanted to drown me. The storm broke 2 days later. It was supposed to be a normal Friday at the office. Coffee. Meetings. Pretending I gave a damn about profit margins. But by noon, I knew something was wrong. Whispers followed me like shadows. Eyes flicked toward me and away again too fast. And then HR called. "Can you step into the conference room?" The voice on the phone was neutral. Too neutral. My stomach dropped. When I walked in, my boss was there. So was the HR rep. And of course Ethan. For a second, all I could do was stare. He looked the same. Polished. Perfect. Like he hadn't blown up my life 6 months ago. But there was a tightness around his mouth, a flicker in his eyes that almost looked like shame. "Nate," my boss said, gesturing for me to sit. "We've received a concern regarding professional boundaries." My blood went cold. "What?" "It's been brought to our attention," the HR rep continued, her voice smooth and clinical, "that you may be involved in a personal relationship with a colleague." Every cell in my body screamed denial, but the words stuck in my throat, because I could feel Ethan watching me, waiting for something, waiting to see if I'd break. I forced myself to speak. "That's not illegal." "No," she said evenly, "but it can create conflicts of interest. We need to ensure." "Are you kidding me?" The words burst out before I could stop them. "This is coming from him?" I jerked my chin toward Ethan, rage burning through my fear like gasoline. The guy who left me for my brother. And now suddenly he's concerned about ethics? Ethan flinched. My boss's brows shot up. The HR rep blinked like I just started speaking in tongues. "Nate," Ethan started, his voice low, almost pleading. "No," I snapped, standing so fast my chair screeched against the floor. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to rip me apart and then waltz in here like some moral authority." "Please," he said, his eyes flicking toward the others in the room. "Can we talk about this privately?" "Go to hell," I said, my voice shaking with fury I'd been choking down for months. "You want to ruin me? Fine. But don't pretend it's about policy. This is about you. And whatever pathetic need you have to feel like the good guy." "Nate," my boss said sharply, "that's enough." But it wasn't. Not for me. Because for the first time in months, I didn't feel hollow. I felt alive. Angry. ready to fight for something that actually mattered. So I did the only thing I could think of. I walked out. Adrian found me 2 hours later, sitting on a park bench with my head in my hands. He didn't say a word at first, just sat down next to me, our shoulders brushing in that quiet, grounding way he had. "I'm guessing HR wasn't offering you a promotion," he said finally. A laugh burst out of Maharsh, brittle, but real. "You could say that." He turned his head, studying me with those eyes that always saw too much. "You want to tell me what happened?" So I did. Every word. The ambush. The accusations. The way Ethan looked at me like he was still holding some part of me he had no right to anymore. When I finished, Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think you're done letting other people write your story." The words hit me like a punch and then like a lifeline. Because he was right. I'd spent so long twisting myself into knots for Oliver, for Ethan, for the version of Nate everyone else wanted me to be. And where had it gotten me? Alone. Angry. Afraid. I looked at Adrian. Really looked at him, the man who'd stood by me when I was drowning, who'd asked for nothing but the truth. And for the first time in months, the choice felt clear. "You're right," I said, my voice steadying. "I'm done." The fallout was brutal. There were meetings, more HR conversations, a mutual agreement that ended with me packing up my desk while whispers rippled through the office like wildfire. But Adrian was there, through all of it. When I slammed the box of my belongings onto my kitchen table and collapsed into a chair, he knelt in front of me, his hands warm on my knees. "You didn't lose," he said softly. "Feels like I did," I muttered. "No," he said, his voice fierce now. "You walked away. That's not losing. That's taking your life back." And for the first time, I believed him. Weeks passed. The dust settled. I found a new job, smaller firm, lower profile, but a hell of a lot more peace. Oliver reached out once, then twice. I ignored him both times. Not out of hate, just exhaustion. Some bridges aren't worth rebuilding. As for Ethan, last I heard, he and Oliver postponed the wedding. I didn't ask why. Didn't care. Their story wasn't mine anymore. Mine was this. Waking up to sunlight spilling across Adrian's bare shoulders. Cooking breakfast together in our tiny kitchen while music played low in the background. Learning slowly that love doesn't have to be a battlefield. That maybe happiness isn't a lightning strike, it's 1,000 small moments, stitched together with hope. One night, months later, we were on the balcony of my apartment, the same one where everything started. The city stretched out below, glittering like a promise. Adrian wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. "You ever think about the first time we kissed?" he murmured. "Every damn day," I said, leaning back into him. He chuckled, his lips brushing my neck. "You were so sure it was a mistake." "It wasn't," I said simply. "No," he agreed, turning me to face him. "It was the best decision either of us ever made." And when he kissed me then slow, deep, like we had all the time in the world, I knew something with absolute certainty. I didn't shed a tear for Ethan because I was never his to keep. I was always mine. And now, finally, I was his. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.